Hello, hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of AWS TechTales. I'm your host, Matt Burke.
And I am your co-host, Samara Reaño. Welcome back, everyone.
And Samara, welcome back to the
Yes,
show.
thank you. I missed you all last week, but Brooke did an amazing job, so kudos to her. I really loved the episode, watched it, thought it was pretty neat, so good to be back.
Yeah, for those of you that are joining for the first time or you're new to TechTales, TechTales is the show where we talk about real life customer issues and what you can do to solve them. Last week, we were the customers because we were exploring AI chat moderation. How can you use AI to automatically moderate your chat in like a live stream, crazy, crazy amount of comments thing?
Mhm.
So please put in the chat today to let us know that you are not AI. Let us know, just say hi and where you're from.
Yeah, from what part of the world you're joining our stream today? I thought that was really cool, especially because it was kind of like a use case similar to what we have here. You know, we come every week, we talk, we sort through comments, and we answer people's questions. So I thought it was a pretty cool use case that was showcased last week, Matt.
What I thought was fun was there was initial hesitance amongst the team, especially our producers, of like, are we going to share the link to actually test the moderation in real time? Like,
Yeah, in
what if
real
they put
time.
something really bad in? And we were like, I think our
What
audience
if?
is a very good audience. I think I feel in safe hands. Hey, Snail Ice, welcome from
Oh,
Pennsylvania. Awesome.
Pennsylvania. Nice. Welcome.
So I wasn't worried at all, and thankfully I was proved out last week that there wasn't any bad words going in the chat that were making it through, or some. I'm sure your daughter probably teaches you like a new like lingo every week or
Yes,
something that
every
I'm not
week there is
aware of.
something new that I assume is one thing, but in reality is another. So I'm assuming that you all kind of did some of that last week, getting caught up with the new acronyms out there.
I think the AI caught them. I think the AI is up to date, so I didn't see anything. I just learned the last couple of weeks the term crashing out. So I feel like
Oh
I'm starting to become
no.
like the distance between me and like grandpa level of understanding lingo is starting to build up. Um,
I learned that a few months back. Whenever, my daughter would be like, I'm crashing out. And I'll be like, what is that?
see, that's what I'm saying. I'm already old news. It's not cool anymore. I shouldn't be using it. Let us know your favorite Gen Z lingo in the chat. No, in all seriousness, today we have a topic that I think is near and dear to all TAM's
Hmm.
hearts. I think to
Yes.
Zamara and myself,
Yes.
which is that customers always ask, "How am I doing in the cloud?
Hmm.
Am I following the best practices? If not, what am I doing wrong? And
Hmm.
how can I fix them?" And thankfully, for a very, very long time, at least as long as I've been at Amazon, there has been a tool for just that.
That's, yep, 100%.
And so it's called Trusted Advisor. Hey, Victor, welcome back to the
Hi,
show. Thanks for
Victor.
joining in.
Yes.
Um,
I was going to say, as a TAM myself, I have so many conversations with my customers that are related to Trusted Advisor and how he could be used. I have introduced many customers into this tool because I feel that it is exactly what you say, right? It's not even just about your posture in the cloud, but then also when you're talking about cost optimization and the ways that you can customize what you currently have and the opportunities there, that's another way to do it as well. So
which
definitely a big range of things that you can leverage it for.
which very exciting, and not the meat of the topic today, but actually maybe I should share this while we're talking about this. I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but you made me think of this. Is that last week I was at FinOps X, which was super
Uh-huh.
cool. I was
Yes.
not there in a Tech Tales capacity, but I did hang out with one of our sister shows, Keys to AWS Optimization,
Oh,
over there,
cool. Yeah.
and we had a really cool Trusted Advisor launch, which was taking the recommendations that we've had in Trusted Advisor and merging them into something that you can see in the cost optimization hub.
Uh-huh.
So let me pull up the blog post really briefly for folks that haven't seen this or don't know what it is. I think this is super cool. And then we'll get our guest on. So,
Sounds
because
good.
I think this is new news for you, Zamar, as
I was
well.
gonna say I want to see it too. So as soon as you get that link, I'm also gonna click on it.
So, this is the new blog post. I'll make this a little bit bigger. But we've got these new checks So if you went to Trusted Advisor and then you went to the Cost Optimization Hub, two great places to check right in sync. So we had our teams collaborate, which is more difficult than you think at Amazon, not because they don't like each other, but because we do these things called two pizza teams, where
Yes.
you kind of make a team that's big enough that you can feed them with two pizzas. Sometimes those people go hungry, I guess, depending. But
Because I will eat half the pizza.
what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say because I will eat half the pizza.
Yeah, you give me a whole pizza. If it's really good pizza, I might eat half of it.
Yeah.
So you can see that we've got these new checks that are now going to be integrated into Hub. These are now aware if you've got specific discounts with AWS, or if you've got RIs or savings plans. It kind of understands those. So it's going to give you, EC2 optimizations, RDS. And so these are the new checks that we're building in. And you can see the lists of how this works and what this now looks like in the new Trusted Advisor. So I wasn't even planning to talk about this, but you reminded me.
No, but this is like really cool. Thank you for sharing. I'm definitely going to take a look at it. I think that this is great. I have some
Victor, I love
questions,
the pizza emoji.
But I know that we're not here to talk about this specific announcement. That we have our guest today that is actually going to come talk to us about Trusted Advisor. So without further ado, I think we should bring him in.
Yeah, let's bring him in. Ready? Let's get Daniel onto the stage. Daniel, welcome to AWS TechTales.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. And Trusted Advisor, see, I even learned something new about Trusted Advisor.
Fresh off the presses.
I was like, yes. I thought I'm the teacher today.
Apparently you had Matt come in and teach us something today as well. It's like you said, we're always learning new things.
Yep, day one, always day one.
So Daniel, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got started at Amazon or what you do.
Yep, so my name's Daniel. I am a TAM, a technical account manager, based out of New York, and I support the strategic customers that AWS has. My background is with networking and security, so dealing with a lot of infrastructure. And I've been with AWS for now, when it comes to July 4th, it'll be 6 years. So I'm very close.
So we got
together.
About the same tenure.
I was going to say, yeah.
I've been joking that
close to time.
Yeah, I've been joking that we get one extra week of vacation here at Amazon when you reach the 6-year mark. So it's now we can both, I guess, take extra days off together.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So, but now I want to check my vacation days. So, like, am I getting extra now?
Yeah. As soon as you hit July 4th, Victor's giving me a little emoji on that one.
Yeah. So So I've been working with customers, and a lot of times, as you mentioned, like all the benefits of Trusted Advisor. So, like last year, or actually recently, also we've been releasing a lot of new checks. Right, there's a lot of best practices. New service came online. So today, hopefully, we can talk about some of these new checks, and it's about security, resiliency, and obviously cost. Right, so there'll be some of our costs also. And how you deal with, like, so we tell you about potential things that you should be investigating, but then I think the key is, okay, how do you actually resolve them or implement these recommendations, right? Some of these recommendations are very straightforward. It's almost like, oh, this on off. Versus some of them, sometimes you actually need to go and actually make some architectural changes. It's not something you do overnight, that kind of thing. So we'll go through some of them, where some are simple, some are a little bit more involved.
Okay, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I do wonder though, how many people from our audience has interacted with Trusted Advisor, knows pretty well what Trusted Advisor does, and some that are just hearing it for the first time. I'll be interested to know that. So if you can drop your comments and
so if you have used Trusted Advisor, just give me a Y or yes. If you have never used it, give me a no. This is a common certification question too, but typically around what level of support that you need to buy in order to get some of these checks. Well, I'll let the chats be a little quiet. Oh no, we got a no. So
okay,
this is all new. First time looking.
Maybe.
What does maybe mean? Sasmouth's
It's like
just
I
welcome.
heard
Hello,
it.
hello. So Sasmouth, we're talking about if you've ever used the AWS service Trusted Advisor or not. If you have, say yes. If not, you can just say no.
Yes, I know.
You'll hurt Daniel's feelings though. That's if you say no.
Well, hopefully today you see it, you will use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you see the benefits of it.
Oh, Nova, use it a little, not an expert. Great. Then you're the
Yeah.
perfect audience for the
Yes.
show today. Thanks for joining.
All right, Daniel. So work us through. What do you have for us today?
All right. So if you want to share my demo screen. So today
Yeah.
we're gonna go through a few checks, right? So
All right, hold on. We've got two screens on there. You want to share one more time?
let me share the screen one more
Yeah,
time.
that looks
All
good.
right. So okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna throw up. This is the reference on it. So if anyone who maybe haven't seen what Trusted Advisor is, you can come to this documentation there, which lists like all the checks, right? So all the customer optimization checks. There's a long list for performance, security. So here's a great way to browse what all these checks are. But now, before we do that, so let's get to the first check, right? Let's get right to it. The first check. So the first check we're gonna do is about application load balancer, the target group that's not encrypted. Now, the good thing about each checks is when you go to each checks, it actually has all the descriptions right there, as you can see. Right, this is a what I call one of those simple checks right here, where
Daniel,
all
really quick. Sorry. I
yep,
got a comment that I think is really smart, which is that, oh, this is similar to the well-architected pillars.
exactly, you're absolutely correct on that. Because these checks, if you look at on the left side there, the checks are all using the same pillars as the well architect, right? About cost, security, resiliency, right? And here it's called fault tolerance. But yep, exactly. So these checks are a lot of them that we're going to go through. It's actually talking about are you aligned to any of the well architect best practices? So for this particular one, right, like in here, so this actually has a link right to it. If we open up this link right here, sorry, guess what it brings you to? The well architect framework pillar, and brings you the best practice that this particular check is trying to align you with. So you can see this is a check, and the bottom of it right here, I put up two examples of it where one target group it's got a green check and the other one has this warning check. That's the one where flag the resource. It says this resource may not be aligned to it. And we're going to go to the resource and you're going to see that it's basically a target group that's using HTTP versus the other one that's using HTTPS.
And I think that that's like one of the greatest thing about going through the trusted advisor is that it would check your own environment against this specific pillar. So it's not something that you have to go and kind of dig around and see. It's for those of you that have never kind of looked into trusted advisor, just that differentiation between like what's green, what's warning, what's red. I think it really makes a difference on how you move forward whenever you're trying to resolve these recommendations.
Yeah. And you can see, and this is the straightforward word. Like, okay, the resolution for this is that you update your load balancer target group to use HTTPS rather than HTTP. And you just have to deploy a certificate on your backend target, right? So it's a change here, but you have to update your targets to be able to talk HTTPS. So this is one of the straightforward tests. There's not much to do other than you have to go update your configuration in here. As you can see, it tells you all the resources that are not aligned to it and the ones that are good.
And these lists can get really big.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
sometimes it's a lot.
Yeah, this is my demo environment, so there's only two things I specifically put in there just for this. So yeah, but it is good when you have a big list, because remember, right, trusted advisor, right, you don't have to use the console, right, to only use it. You can actually integrate with other services like event, the event driven thing, so that when trusted advisor flags a resource, you can actually trigger an automation for you. So this is not the only way to see it, but this is a nice way for you to interact with it.
And then also, I want to put it out there, right? So we have the CID dashboards, leveraging QuickSight. We have something called the TAO or TAO, like I like to call it, dashboard, which will also kind of just like summarize all of your recommendations into one dashboard. I feel like it is very user friendly, very easy to interact, especially if you are under a big organization and have to go through and kind of try to resolve many recommendations that are not just two like we're seeing in this demo. So definitely a great tool to leverage in these cases.
And really quick, I just want to say hi back to Sam. Thanks for joining us in the chat.
Hi,
it's
Sam.
Great to see you. Back to you, Daniel.
Yep. So this is this is a very quick recommendation right here. If there's any more questions, we can definitely answer it. But otherwise, we're going to go into a little bit more involved now. Each of the checks we're going to get into is going to get a little bit more involved than this one.
All right.
I like starting with this though, because it's kind of like a binary. It's like, is it encrypted or is it not? That's it.
Now, the next one is going to be talking about multi-AZ. Now, we're going to get into the fault tolerance resiliency checks here. Okay. Now, the one we're going to talk about is network firewall. So network firewall is the AWS managed firewall services that you can deploy in your environment, so that if you want to use traffic inspection between your VPCs, like going out to the internet or even between VPCs, this is something that you could deploy. Now, what this check does is that when you deploy the network firewall actually deploys endpoints in your subnets, and these subnets correspond to your specific AZs. This one is checking that if you deploy the firewall, do you deploy in multi-AZ or did you deploy in only a single AZ? Now, I think we talked about the importance of multi-AZ. I think going back, there's an episode 3 where you talk about the importance of having a multi-AZ architecture inside a region so that you can be a little bit more resilient in the event of an AZ impairment and you want to fail out of it, right? So this one is talking about, okay, you have all your application, make sure your network component that you're also deploying your network inspection in a multi-AZ fashion. Now, this check, there's no way to know if you're actually deploying your network firewall maybe in a test environment. So maybe you can ignore this if it's in a test environment, right? Because you don't really care about it, whether it's multi-AZ in your test environment. But it is, again, right, you come down to the resources here. It tells you which one it flags and which one doesn't. So you can see I have one of them, right? I labeled it the firewall. We'll go into the firewall in a second, where it tells you, oh, this is only in one AZ. So that's why I'm warning. Like the other tools are fine. I deploy in 2 AZs.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important call out. A lot of the times when we're having these discussions as TAMs with our customers, one of the things that we hear is like, yeah, some of these recommendations are flagging for development environments that we are, using for testing or for getting ready for things, but not necessarily that we want them to be multi-AZ. So I like that you also bring light to that for those viewers that, will kind of be like, oh, geez, I will have to sort through all of this and then kind of go and validate and make sure that I can action.
Yep. And we were in the check description, women highlighted like this is really important if you're doing your production environment. So let's go back. Let's go look at that particular firewall there. Go to the VPC console. I'm going to just kill some of the tabs. Okay. So in the network firewall, so I have all these firewalls I created. Now this is the one that is flagged, the single AZ one. And what it's talking about is down here. When I deployed it, it's only in one AZ right here. Now there are ways to change it, right? So you can easily come in here and just change I want to add another subnet to it, and then you will resolve this issue. Now, since it is your network traffic and inspection, maybe you don't want to edit it and you want to actually think about it and maybe actually deploy a new one, right? So this is one, where you may actually be a little bit involved in changing your network architecture, how your traffic flows. You're going to go to one firewall versus another one. But
so when you make these changes, how quickly does it reflect back in Trusted Advisor? Do you have to wait like 24 hours for it to recheck?
Yeah. The Trusted Advisor is not, these checks are not real time, meaning if you make a change, it's not immediately you're going to have it all resolved in here. So Trusted Advisor, usually is every day it refreshes the checks. So you're going to have to come in tomorrow and just see it reflected here. So that's a very important point, that this is not a live dashboard, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we talk about cost, like it's not going to happen right away, guys. It's going to take at least 8, most likely 24 hours for it to refresh if you're looking in Cost Explorer. So that's why we have other services to warn you.
Yeah.
But that's where it's good, right? You don't have to remind yourself. Like we talked about earlier, you could integrate with some of maybe your own ticketing system or anything along those lines, where it will, once the check gets refreshed tomorrow, well, it'll update your ticketing system, right?
Just kind of like you can work with the schedules that you want as a user,
Yep.
or how often you want to dedicate the time to go through the checks.
Yep. Now, so this check, again, it's a little bit complex, but again, it's relatively straightforward, right? It's a matter of, did you deploy this in multiple AZs, multiple subnets, or not? Right? The criticality of having a multi-AZ deployment.
Raleigh has a good question. So the TAO dashboard also need a data update. Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
that's
definitely.
also going to be dependent on your data refresh into QuickSight itself too. So there's a bunch of layers across the way where this is getting
right.
updated.
Yes, because the automatic refresh happens every 24 hours. If you schedule it to do more than that, it will have to still wait for that refreshment period from the trusted advisor itself, then for it then to actually refresh in the dashboard as well. So even if you're refreshing the dashboard every hour, that doesn't mean that the trusted advisor recommendations are going to be updated every hour, as that there is a gap in time of that 24-hour effect for the refresh of the different recommendations.
And this is the multi-AZ. So let's say you do have multi-AZ deployment. The next check is going to actually say, okay, you have deployed your firewall in a multi-AZ fashion, but are you configured to use it properly? Because a common case I see customers sometimes is that, yes, they deploy their multi-AZ workload, but when they actually want to say, okay, I got an issue of a AZ impairment and AZA, I try to fail out of it to AZB, but somehow my AZB was still being impaired. It doesn't look like they're isolated. They're actually, instead of being AZ independent, they actually become AZ dependent. Where, so the next one is actually says, there's actually two tests that are the same. So right above it, it says, are your endpoints. Now, one's talking about the network firewall endpoint, and the other one's talking about the gateway load balancer endpoint. They are related because the network firewall is an AWS managed services that uses the gateway load balancer service underneath it to support it. And that's the endpoint that it deploys. Now, customer doesn't, if they choose not to use the network firewall, they can use like a third-party firewall, right? One of the popular ones out there. And you could integrate that with a gateway load balancer, and it will deploy the same kind of endpoint, right? It's an endpoint in your route table that you're going to send as a destination. If you say, I want to inspect the traffic, I'm going to send it to that endpoint. What these two check is doing is checking for those endpoints, whether it's one is for gateway load balancer specifically if you're using third party, and the other one is talking about the network firewall. And it says, if they are operating independently or not. Now, what that means, now, when you're not, when you have cross AZ, that's what this check will flag you, and it says, everything may be working fine, right? In your normal day-to-day operation, your workloads are fine in AZA, AZB, AZC. But when it comes down to a AZ resiliency, when you need to fail over, you may not be fine because you have a KZ dependency, meaning you have your workload that's deploying AZA and you want to only stick on AZA, but somehow you send your network traffic to AZB instead. And when you try to fail out of B, AZA gets impacted.
So Daniel, we have a great question here from
Yep.
Sam saying, do we get similar recommendations for auto-scaling group and ECS service multi-AZ setup?
That I will have to double check on the whole list because there are hundreds of them, whether you have deployed your auto-scaling group in multi-AZ fashion or just one AZ. Now, I know there are checks to check when you do have it deploy, if you actually have AZ imbalance. That's another check where maybe you say you're deploying 3 AZs, but the actual deployment somehow is only like mostly in one AZ, where like 50% of your instances are actually deploying AZA, even though you're supposed to in 3. So that would have to be double checked on that.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, so I see one that's EC2 auto-scaling is not deployed in multiple AZ or does not meet the minimum number of AZs. Let's see what's in here for ECS. Yep, I got ECS multi-AZ placement strategy. So I'm going to put in the chat for folks the list of fault tolerance checks, and you can kind of do what I did live, which is Control A through it, and then ask us any questions that you might have. Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see, right? So I'm using the one that for gateway load balancer. No, I mean the network firewall right here. You can see a flag. It's like, here's your firewall endpoints and where they actually deploy. And I got 2 of them that's flagged where it says, okay, in these 2 AZs, they are crossed. They're not, meaning the workload, the route table on one of them is referring to an AZ that's on a different subnet, a different AZ. Now I'm going to show you what exactly that means. So if we go to, I do have these environments that I set up. Now I'm going to show you just so that because the rest of the demo where I have these VPCs network deploy. If you look at, they're all the same, basically, demo 1, 2, 3. I want to show you the resource map. If you haven't seen it, this is very neat. It actually shows you your subnets and which AZs they're in. Throughout this whole demo, as we go through it, I'm deploying basically in 2 AZs, AZA, AZB. If you notice, every subnet that's an odd number is going to be an AZA. Everything an even number is going to be AZB, because that's going to be important when we talk about cross AZ now. So this is talking about, let's say, this cross AZ. So I'm going to pick an example right here. So this subnet, it says this subnet has a cross AZ reference. So if I go to subnets, so I can filter the subnet. So this is the private subnet of demo 2. It's private subnet 1, so that's in AZA. Now look at the route table here. Okay, so it's sending to this is the firewall endpoint. Now if we go more deep into the route table here. Now if I look at I'm going to edit the routes. Now pay attention to the endpoint here. So where's that endpoint going? The endpoint is going to B.
B.
So to resolve this, obviously, presuming you have, like I do, have a multi-AZ, I just have to, all right. Whatever reason, I pointed to B instead. So I want to point back to A. And that will resolve my, that particular check. Where now, everything in A will always stay in A. And it didn't take like a detour to B for a brief moment. So that when you do want to fail out, let's say you want to fail out B, you're definitely not depending on B anymore.
And you're not getting inter-AZ data transfer, which is always a pain.
There you go. So yeah, so that's That's the other benefit. So this check, even though is predominantly like listed under the fault tolerance, but it does have I think it's also in the right here at the end. It's like, yeah, it's resiliency, but it also has a cost optimization aspects to it. So this is right. Okay, so these two checks, make sure you deploy OTAZ and you're using it, you're configuring it properly. So these two checks work together. That's resiliency.
In a way, you're kind of like doing two things by just resolving one. So pretty good.
Yeah, and I didn't go into the gateway load balancer because even though I deployed the gateway load balancer and the endpoints, but I don't actually have a third-party firewall. So there's actually no firewall behind this, but I set up the same wrong cross AZ and it flagged it.
Oh, cool. Okay. Even though there's no target groups or anything.
Yeah, even though there's no firewall. So if I send traffic there, actually there's nothing to inspect. It would just go into a black hole somewhere.
Oh no. Folks, if you're just joining us because we're at halfway through the hour mark, Daniel's been taking us through a bunch of the trusted advisor checks, what happens when you get flagged by them, and then what do you do to resolve them. So we've had a few already that has been really cool, Daniel, and now I'm looking forward to see what else you got.
Yep.
All right, so we have two that's focusing on resiliency. So now let's go look at some cost optimization, right? The ones that are probably showing up on the new cost optimization hub also. So a lot of cost optimization checks deals with whether you have underutilized resource or resources that you have deployed that maybe you forgot to clean it up. So the one I'm going to first focus on is interface endpoints. So for those that may not be, so interface endpoint is a way where you could deploy an endpoint inside your VPC in case, like if you go to any of our services, right, SNS or any of the services, and you try to do contact the endpoint to make a call, an ACLI call. If you don't do anything, normally it will just go to a public IP address, right, within AWS, and then you contact it, and you then do your whatever access you need. Interface endpoint is a way that you could deploy an endpoint inside your VPC so that when you try to contact those services, it will be just a private IP inside your VPC, and you don't have to actually need public internet access on your VPC. So this is for people that may actually have that requirement. Like, I don't want my VPC to even go out to the internet with any public IP address. I want to deploy this. Great, we have this service for you. What this check does is that it will check if you have deployed the endpoints. Like maybe you're very excited about this service and you deploy all over the place. What this will tell you is that, okay, you deploy all these services, but maybe you have some that you haven't used in the last 30 days. Right? Because the criteria for this is if it doesn't see anything going through that endpoint in the last 30 days, it'll flag it to you and says, maybe you want to investigate this. Right? So the obvious, easy thing to do is like, oh, great, I'm not using this. I'll just delete it. I'm done. But maybe you don't want to delete it because like, okay, yes, it's not being used in the last 30 days, but I still need to use it once in a while, right? It's an essential service. I just don't use it that often. So what this does have is, so we do have recommendations on, okay, then maybe you can delete it out of that VPC so you don't incur the charges. And then when you do want to use it, you can use a endpoint in another VPC. So that's what we call the centralized architecture here. So let me just show you. So that's what it will look like here. And we'll go through the configuration of this, how you actually configure from deploying the VPC and the endpoint in the VPC to using a centralized one. So what this shows is that, so all these little spoke VPC accounts, they don't have endpoints. When they do need to use that private IP endpoint, it's using it in some shared VPC instead. So it won't be a private IP address in their own VPC. It'll be a private IP address in some other VPC, a centralized shared VPC. And to do that, you actually need to make sure, obviously, you have communication between your VPC and that centralized VPC. But the key to actually make that happen is on the left here, you see the Route 53 private hosted zone, because that's the one that will manage your DNS and it will change. And we're going to see it live. It will take some time. So let's just go to one of the examples right here. So the check is talking about this. It's the SNS service that I've set up as the demonstration. This is one that's been flagged as, hey, you haven't used it for the last 30 days. So that one, let's go to
And
the
while you're
endpoint.
doing that,
Yep.
I have another comment that Rally, I think I need a bit more clarification here. They're asking, does Trusted Advisor also have checks for refactor spaces? I don't know what this means.
Yeah. What's refactor spaces?
Yeah.
That's a good question. If you could clarify that. But while we're waiting for a clarification, so let's
Migration Hub. Migration Hub refactor spaces. Oh, you found something that I have not heard of within AWS, which you win the no prize on that one.
Yeah. But if from Migration Hub, I guess refactor spaces, I'm guessing that would be just another environment that's deployed. So I saw.
Oh, I see. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna put this in our private chat here. This is an interesting. So this goes towards the endpoint talk that you were doing. Wow. Okay.
It's all related.
Yeah, saying it can include transit gateways, other infrastructure that can be expensive. Yeah. Oh, this is.
Well,
Raleigh, you really this is a new concept I have not heard yet.
yeah.
I don't know why.
I see. Yeah, someone just made a comment
a topic
about
for a future episode.
Yes, I think so. I think I need to dive deeper into Migration Hub, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and did someone just make a comment about using the transit gateway? There may be cost to it. So true. So when you do use the transit gateway, there's the 2 cents per gigabyte data process for any data sent through it. Now the idea is that your interface endpoint isn't used that much, right? So while you're not using it and you're paying the fixed hourly charges every day, every hour, the very little that you use for that data processing charge on the transit gateway is still less than the hourly charge you pay for not using it. So I hope that makes sense in terms of from a cost perspective. How, yes, you're paying extra for transit gateway, but it's the idea that it's completely still less than what you're paying for the hourly charges that for resource that you hardly use. So let's just get back to the endpoint right here. So this is the endpoint that it's talking about, SNS1. So if you look, so we're going to talk about DNS. So this is the important part. So you look at all these DNS names that's associated with that endpoint. The top 3 ones are the random names that we give to every endpoint, but the 2 ones are the really important ones. Because when you deploy the endpoint and you check the box that says I want to enable the DNS names also. So this is what it's talking about for the SNS. So you have the SNS US East 1 Amazon AWS.com and SNS US East 1 API.aws. So those are the 2 endpoints. Now, since this one is deploying in demo 1, so I'm going to go to a EC2 in demo 1 so you can see the actual changes happening. Okay. So I'm going to go to a demo 1 right here. I'm going to connect to it.
I was just reminiscing recently about how when I joined Amazon, I picked a Mac instead of Windows, so I didn't have to install Putty.
Well, now
now it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's been long solved.
I actually had to do the exact same thing, but I actually did have to install Putty in my, so I've been through that experience.
Yeah, so let's say, let's find out. So if I do a DNS lookup, I am resolving to the local IP that's in that VPC. like 10, the 10.1 address, which is what this instance is in. And that is the IP address of the endpoint. So we'll go to, right, so these are the two IP addresses. And if I want to like issue a just simple command to test that it works, then I am actually like using this endpoint. I'm just going to do a simple SNS, create topic. Okay, create topic.
You're probably saying putty greater than Samba. That's fair. I like that comment.
And it created it. So if I go to SNS, oh, so there's other topics, but the test topic I just created right here.
That's right there. Yeah.
Now, assuming I want to now deploy this centralized configuration, so I'm going to delete that endpoint. So if I delete that endpoint, the first thing that will happen is it will then resolve it back to the public IP. So let's do that. It's going to take a few minutes. What we're going to do is delete the endpoint and then make it use the share endpoint that's sitting in the demo VPC instead. So I'm going to delete it. All right, it's going to give a few minutes.
Is there some time?
It does take just a few minutes, not too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then I'm trying to figure out if I need to put on the waiting music or not.
Oh yeah, that's always nice. The on hold music.
Very musical.
So needless to say, right, this is one of those checks that to resolve it, it's not as simple as turning something on or off. You are now actually, because we are now actually changing the network flow, right? Instead of everything staying on the VPC, now you're going to involve a transit gateway, and then the access also on the other VPC. So there's going to be network communications, and we're going to now, once it's deleted, we're going to talk about how you can then update the DNS so that when spoke 1 wants to talk to SNS, it actually gets the IP from the demo.
There is more validation steps in, I guess, in scope rather than just a straightforward, oh, I'm just going to clean this up and it'll, take care of that check and recommendation.
Yeah. But you do have to understand what that, like, the idea of the check here, right, is that it flags you about the resource and it gives you recommendations, right here. It's like, yep, if you don't use it, you could delete it. But if you do use it, consider using a centralized option, right? So it's not a clean cut, but one option is obviously a lot quicker, right? I'm going to go delete. This is what I'm doing. But if I need to say, oh, I still need to use it. Okay, now here's the changes that has to happen. So let's see if it's done yet.
So for the check and while we wait on that, I think a pretty good question for somebody who hasn't looked into Trusted Advisor and the cost optimization recommendations. For these cost optimization recommendations that you're walking through, is there a dollar amount associated of how much you can save on a monthly basis or on each of the checks that are being flagged for your environment?
So not on the checks themselves, because these checks doesn't actually put a dollar amount on terms of if you actually delete it, because sometimes the resources may actually, it's not straightforward. No, it does not. So just answer that.
You should be able to see it though if you check in Cost Optimization Hub, so you'll see all your recommendations there, all totaled up and deduped, which is really the magic. Sam is asking, in which use cases would you prefer to centralize the VPC endpoints And how would you recognize from which account you're receiving most of the traffic on the VPC endpoint? This is an age-old question. I don't know if I don't know if I have a good answer for it. What about you, Daniel?
Yeah. To do that, right? Because you want to basically analyze, like, okay, I have this shared resource, but which of one of my hundreds of VPCs is actually making the most use of it, right? To do that, you can always turn on the VPC flow logs, and then from there, then you can see, okay, who's contacting my IPs for my interface endpoints, right? Who are my top requesters, my clients, right? So that's definitely one option. I think the root cause of this is probably like, I have a shared resource, but how do I charge back for the people that actually
I was
use
just
it?
gonna say that this has to tie back to the chargeback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it becomes a question of, do you want to just charge it evenly? Do you actually want to allocate it proportionally, which is tough,
yeah,
but at
there's
least
some
you're
effort.
saving money by
Yeah.
centralizing. Oh, yeah, Sam says, I was about to say that too.
Yeah, because sometimes the effort of you trying to actually figure out who is using what, sometimes maybe it's not worth it, and just like, all right, I'll just charge it to everybody.
Yeah, is this $100 of data transfer, or is this $100,000? Big
Yeah.
difference.
So let's go back, right? So I'm going to do the same DNS lookup. You notice the answer is now a public IP address, right? For that, and I can use that to, let's say I'm going to change the name, test topic.
Okay, so you're creating a new topic now.
Yep. But I'm going to use the public endpoint now, right? Because it's now going to a public IP. And I should have, if I refresh this, and there it is. Now I want to do the actual change to make use of this share endpoint. And to do that, you basically have to now use the new service that we have. Right? You could try to manually do this, but we do have a new service called Route 53 Profiles, where you can use it to manage all the different DNS settings that you want to like centrally manage it, but then you want to apply to different accounts, different VPCs. So we have an easy way to do that.
Is there a limit on how many you can, I guess, like manage, or is it everything that is within that environment?
There is a limit. The service team does have it's a very high limit. Meaning, if you ever reach that limit, you should have definitely an architecture discussion with your TAMs or your essays on why you need such a high number. We're talking about thousands here.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about. So this right here, profile. So I'm gonna, just for our test, I'm gonna create a profile.
We don't have to use the waiting music anymore.
That's nice.
I think
It's
we
very
just liked
calming.
it as a background music.
I know.
So that's a create profile. So these are the different things that you can manage, right? So you can manage, if you're using our DNS firewall rules, you can use it to manage that too. Your private hosted zones or your endpoint zones. The one that we're going to use today is it's managing the endpoints. So I'm going to use it to associate an endpoint. So I have all these endpoints. So I need to find the endpoint ID of this one, the share one. Share. Okay, so I'm going to associate. It's going to take. So I'm going to associate the endpoint and say, I want this profile to manage this endpoint. Now, the second thing I need to do is then, okay, who do I want the VPCs to use this profile? So I need to go to the VPC now. And the VPC I want is demo 1, because that's when so this is the VPC ID.
That's your first one.
Yep. But I don't know about you, but whenever I see these random numbers, I just like, oh, because
I always look at the last two numbers or letter combination. That's kind of how I associate it.
So, well, you could put the waiting music on because this
Yeah.
takes a few minutes again. And then we're going to go
the music, you see.
Oh, I'll put different music.
Yeah. Because once it's associated, we're going to go and the change is complete. And then we're going to go look at it. Now, while we're waiting on here, there's something else that, remember what I said, right? So DNS is one thing, very important thing. But also, I need to make sure the routing table, right, that I can talk to VPC1 and VPC demo. So if we look at the networking for this, is in this subnet. So I'm going to go to this subnet. Let's check the routing table while we're waiting for the DNS. So does anyone notice anything different? I don't have a route to get to the demo VPC.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So even I did all that DNS, I was like, oh, well, how do I get to the demo VPC? So the demo, the share VPC, I mean, has this cider. So it's 50, 60. So I'm going to add a route into that. Go back, I need to get to the route table. Route table. See, that music makes it sound like something exciting is about to happen.
I think it is.
Something exciting is happening.
All right, so I'm going to say that. And in this case, I want to use the transit gateway.
Does this annoy you coming from a networking background, how easy this is?
No, I mean, I've seen also customers. Sometimes you just have to understand. Like, if you see all the clicks I'm going through, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not done yet, right? Like this.
But still, compared to previous pre-cloud, this is nothing.
Oh yeah, free cloud. Like you actually have to go physically get the wire sometimes and connect everything. This I'm just virtually like, oh, I want to connect this to that. Now, we go to transit gateway route table. The transit gateway route table is actually fine because once it does reach the transit gateway, it does have a route to 1050, and it goes to this VPC, right? The demo VPC, and when it comes out,
because it's attached.
No, that's because I it's attached and I preset up this already to save some of the steps. But the whole point that you now have a connection from VPC1 to the share VPC, and it's through a transit gateway. And when the transit gateway comes out, this route table, it will just send it to the local because it will know exactly where to go. So it has a local route.
Got it. So we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yep.
So
let's look at this.
You tell me what we got left in that time.
No, I think we're almost done. I think this should be associated. So now, I think it's the perfect time because now, if I do the DNS lookup again, I'm resolving to 1050 now, right? Which is the IP address of the endpoint that's sitting in the demo.
So we got full connectivity.
Yep. And now
it's like you timed it to a T.
Yeah, no. So let's say I'm gonna create a new topic again. And you can see the topic being created right there.
And there you go.
So you see from my client, I didn't do anything on my client, right? As you can see, all the client did was just sitting there, but I'm making changes in terms of the underlying how the network flows. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you resolve that particular, was like, okay, I want to use the resource, but I just don't want to deploy it. I only use it once in a while. So then once in a while, it will have to hop onto the share VPC to use the resource there instead of having it deploy in my own VPC and I'm paying for it every month, that I use it once in a while.
There you go.
So this is a little bit more involved, right? Obviously, this is a little bit more involved than the first check, which is like, oh, am I using HTTP or HTTPS? So this is I give you a flavor, hopefully, that what these trusted advisor checks are and how you can benefit, and then how it can alert you right after on the resiliency check, where it will alert you. It's like, maybe you should take a look at this, even though everything may be working fine in your normal day-to-day. But in the event that you have to respond to a impairment somewhere, you may not be able to respond as you expect it to be.
Mm-hmm. And that
So
is
I think
true. And
folks, oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was
No,
just gonna
you.
say that it's also a great reminder of it's not so straightforward, or like you don't only have one option in some of these checks. For example, if you can't do the immediate one, then there's also another option that you can adopt to reduce that cost. So I think that that's also very important, as you all maybe go in and kind of look around the trusted advisor in the console and see what the possibilities are for your environment.
Yeah, and also one example, right? Even the example right there, like maybe sometimes you turn on your multi-AZ. Okay, I deploy something multi-AZ, but then you didn't configure it properly, and then you got another check that now tells you, oh, you did one, but step two.
Mm-hmm. You're missing step two. Exactly. Well, thank you
So
so much for
folks,
joining today.
yeah, I was gonna say, everyone that's tuning in, action item for you, go check out Trusted Advisor. Even if it's just a new account with the basic checks, go see what it's flagging,
Yep.
see if you can remediate it. It's super important. Like everyone asks, am I following best practices? And as you've seen, it could be a really simple fix, or your engineering team might have a little bit of a battle with you to get it done. But I really appreciate your time, Daniel, and thank you so much for like setting up. I
Yes.
really like the progression of this demo that you shared with the team, and we got a lot of great feedback from the chat as well.
Great
People
questions as
saying thank
well.
you, have a great time. Really
Yep.
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
joining today.
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Take care, everyone. See
Bye
you next
bye.
week. Same time, same channel, same place.
See you all.